Welcome to the Felt Studio. I'm Wendy Bailye and today I'm going to show you how to make some felt hearts. Now these hearts are really special to me. They're comfort hearts, so they're made to give comfort to people. And there's a particular way of making them that ensures that that is the case. So the hearts are filled with pure wool, not with fibre fill or anything else, and that just gives them a really nice kind of huggable demeanour, and they're just a little bit more solid if they're filled with wool. So I'm going to show you how to make a medium-sized heart, and that's the medium-sized heart. And there's also a large size and a small size. So there'll be a pattern with the 3 different sizes for you to follow. And we're going to get started. So the things that you'll need to begin with, a chopstick is very handy, but it could be a knitting needle or a pencil. I like to have a tiny little pair of pliers as well, which I'll show you what to do with. I usually have a couple of cloths, so this is a really absorbent microfiber cloth, but you could use a washer or a hand towel or a tea towel. And sometimes I use a kitchen sponge. You'll get to see me use all of those. I have a small container of water, and I also in the video I'll be just using a bucket of water to rinse, but you just need a sink so that you can rinse your piece. Some olive oil soap or a nice bar of vegetable oil soap. You want a soap that's not too sudsy. Personally, I love to use a pure olive oil soap, but you could also use just a vegetable-based bar of soap. You don't want a lot of lather, and if you use an ordinary bathroom soap, you get lots of lather. You'll need some wool tops. Again, on the pattern, I'll tell you how many grams of wool you will need. I'm using soft, very soft merino wool tops, and it's 18 micron. And I have some cotton and a threaded needle, and I also have some silk fibre and a piece of tulle net. So this is just scratchy ballet tulle, and it just allows me to wet down the wool without disturbing the fibres. And last but not least, we need to have a pattern. So this is a piece of soft 2mm foam underlay, and you can often get it from white goods stores. It's best if you don't buy new plastic. You can use a piece of bubble wrap as well. It's all up to you. So we're going to get started. So I have a piece of bubble wrap under here as well. Bubbles are up. I'm going to put my template down, and then I'm going to start laying the wool. Now, my hands are quite big, but I do find if I split the wool, so just pulling the wool down like that, and then if you're wanting to remove this wool from the long length, you hold on to it, and you have to have your hands about 1 foot apart, and then you just pull. If you try and pull the wool like this, nothing will happen. So I'm going to start laying out the layers, and I'm just pulling very fine layer of wool and putting it down on my template. Now when I pull on the wool top, I'm only pulling on the very last centimetre. So the thickness of my layer depends on where I put my hand. So if I put my hand here and I'm pulling on 2 inches of fibre, then it's going to be a really thick layer, and I just really would like to have nice fine layers. So I'm just pulling, and it's this part of my hand here. I have the fibres on the ends of my fingers, and I use this part of my thumb to pull. And then what I'm doing is laying it over the top of the template, and I'm allowing about a centimetre overlap around the edges, a little bit over ½ an inch. And you'll see that I'm flipping these fibres. I'm overlapping about 2 centimetres to get a nice even layer. Okay, so that's my first layer. Second layer is laid at right angles. And these hearts are just really lovely things to make. And we have a little group that we've started called the Heartfelt Community Project, which is on Facebook. And if you'd like to join that, you'd be very, very welcome. And we're just making hearts for people who need a little bit of extra comfort. I think at this time in the world, that's something that's really needed. So that's our second layer. Now third. So it's quite a lovely thing to lay the wool fibres. So that's our third layer. And now for our fourth layer. So again, it goes at right angles to the other 3 layers. There's all sorts of different wools that you can use. I do recommend a nice soft wool, and merino, fine merino, it would be my wool of choice for these hearts, because you want them to be kind of perhaps easily wipeable, and you don't want lots of fibre on the surface once it's felted. So I'm just going to pat that down, and we're going to wet it. So my tulle net goes over the top. Just move your dry things out of the way. And my bar of soap. Now I have my bar of soap in a little old plastic net, and I find that's really great, because otherwise you're working with a slippery bar of soap and it's a bit of a bother. So I'm popping that into my water, and I'm just moving that soap around and rubbing it a little bit so that I get some little suds in the water, and that helps the water to go into the wool. Wool is quite water resistant, as you probably know if you want a woolen jumper or a woolen hat, and we just want some little suds. That's enough. And then I am going to get the plastic bag and wet that down. So I did forget to mention about the plastic bag right at the beginning, but I just use a recycled plastic bag, soft plastic bag, and I pop it into my water and wet down. So I'm not rubbing, I'm just patting until all of those fibres are wet through. So it does require quite a bit of patting to get the soap to go right through. I do give a tiny rub, but it's mainly just patting. If you can't see bumps and it all looks nice and flat, then you can remove the net. Now to do that, I just use a kitchen sponge, saves lots of wet towels, and I can wring it out when I'm done. Okay, so take some of the water out, not too much, and then pushing on that net allows you to remove the net easily. Now I'm going to flip that over, and if you don't have enough on this edge to turn over, you can just pick your heart up and move it down a tiny bit. And then you're going to pull these edges all the way around. Now the rule with these edges is that you need to either cut, or sometimes I tear a little bit down here just to allow a snip with the scissors can work really well too. And we just pull these fibres around the template, and we want to pull them on really tightly. So we don't want to leave a space between the edge of the wool and the template. And you can tend to get little pleats. And what we want to do with those pleats is to rub them with our finger like this to get rid of the pleat and make it into more of a, so that it looks kind of gathered. And as I said, with this you can either tear it, which is what I'm used to doing, or you can snip in with the scissors. On the pattern, it shows you just to snip. And then we're going to lay out a little bit more wool. Always make sure your hands are dry when you're working with dry wool. And I'm just going to fill in. Now I'm not overlapping over the edge of the template on this layer. All I'm doing is covering up this white part in the center. So that it's completely covered. So that's my first layer. Just make sure it's well covered. There's a little bit here that's not, so I just use my pinching fingers and fill that in. And then we'll start on the next layer. That's my second layer, my third, and my fourth coming up. Do try and remember how many layers you put down. It can be helpful if you are a bit forgetful to just put a little mark on a piece of paper when you do your layer so that you don't forget. Okay, so that's all our layers. Now you'll see there are some fibres hanging over the edge. That's absolutely fine. And I'll show you what we do with those. Okay, so I'm going to now wet down again. So my soapy water and my plastic bag. Now this won't need much water because it's only a little bit of wool in the centre. Okay, use my sponge to blot. Now that's getting quite wet, so what I do is just wring that out and keep going. That saves so many wet towels and so much energy for the world, so do try and do that. And then I'm going to remove the net and flip my heart over, pull these edges around again. And there we have our heart. Now it's really important that these are pulled tight onto the edge of the template and that this part here, on this little section here, is pulled right down. Okay, so that's our heart. So I'm just going to dry my hands. Now I've got some silk fibre that I'm going to put on the surface. Now I'm just going to do that in a similar colour, so it's just in red. What the silk does is give a little bit of a shine to the surface, and when I do them, you can do them plain. If you don't have silk fibre, it's really just fine. You could do multiple colours on the surface. I do try to keep the pattern fairly simple. I think that's particularly nice, and I tend not to do any stitching or beading or anything that takes away from that comfort factor. So you can see on these ones, they've just got the purpley colour that's on the top is the silk fibre, and that just, they feel so nice. There's no lumps and bumps on them. They're, yeah, really lovely. I've made these hearts for many, many years, and you know, it is quite amazing the different stories that people have about how they have found them very comforting. So, and what we're going to do is kind of have a little group that sends all of these out into the world, and that's a lovely thing. So you can see I'm putting these little bits of silk on the surface, and then I will get the net and give it a little pat. Doesn't need extra water. Turn it over, dry my hands, and again a little bit of silk. I tend to put the silk from the middle point of the heart. And what you can do is use your chopstick rather than your finger, because the silk tends to stick to your finger. Just to arrange those fibres nicely. So that's done. Next thing is to start the felting process. So I give 1, 2, 3 wipes of soap. Don't sit with your bar of soap going like this, or you'll end up with lots of suds. And I'm rubbing. Now the important part with this process is to rub only onto the template, so we're not rubbing that way, we're only rubbing on, and what that's doing is allowing the felt to shrink onto the template rather than pushing it off the edge. With a piece of felt, if you do push off the edge, what happens is your felt comes off the edge of the template and then it felts to itself, so you get this little bumpy ridge that runs all the way around here, and that doesn't feel great when you give it a cuddle. So that's just good felt making practice, that you just rub on. There's no time limit. What you're looking for is that as you rub, your hands can slide easily on the surface, and the soap helps that. If you get too much soap, just blot it off with a towel or your washer or your kitchen sponge. What we're looking for as we rub is that when, and I'll show you in a little minute, as we rub, what we're doing is starting the felting process, and these fibres, when you run your finger on them like this, won't move. So I'll just rub it a little bit more. I would do it probably a lot slower if I wasn't videoing. So I do want to show the whole process. And so what we're looking for is when we rub our finger on here, those fibres don't follow our finger. On the reverse, if I rub, see how those fibres move? That is because it hasn't had the felting process start. So what we want to do on the other side is the same. So soak and rubbing, and only rubbing on. Once those both sides are sealed and the fibres aren't moving, then you can start rolling. So what we'll be doing is rolling this up in the bubble wrap and rolling it backwards and forwards. So usually, you know, for me, it's probably 3 or 4 minutes, and you're not putting pressure, it's the friction that you're wanting. So we'll take the net off, see how these fibres are going. Yep, they're looking great. The silk fibres take a little bit longer to stick down, so a little bit of a rub. Okay. So the next part is the rolling. So I'll move these out of the way. Make sure that this is in its right spot. Okay, that's all ready to roll. So I'm going to roll from this direction. The way that you roll your heart will determine which way it shrinks. So we're wanting equal shrinkage, so the idea is that you roll from all 4 directions. Some people put a noodle or like a pool noodle or a piece of dowel in the middle of their roll. I don't. I always just roll, but I have to keep checking all the time because I don't use a noodle. What will happen with this rolling is that the template will start to buckle. So even after that little bit of rolling, we'll have a look and you can see what's starting to happen. See how that template's buckling? That's quite normal. You just flatten it down and then you roll from another direction. So we want to roll from all 4 directions. Okay, so this is feeling great. When I go like this, nothing is moving. And we keep rolling it until it's very uncomfortable for the template to be there. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. You roll, you can get more vigorous. So in the beginning, it's quite a gentle and it's kind of like a squeezy roll. And you can roll multiple hearts at once. You don't have to just do one at a time. It depends. Like sometimes if I'm making a special one for someone and I want to put intent in, I'll only do one. But other times I'm happy to make a few. So let's have a look. So you can see what that looks like. That's what yours will look like. Don't think that it's wrong. It's absolutely perfect. This template is starting to curl up inside, so that's not flat anymore. So you can see this is the pattern. So you can see that that is shrinking a lot that way. Now, if I want to kind of make the heart a little shorter this way, I would roll this way. So that's up to you. You can have a long thin heart or you can have a wider one depending on which way you roll it. And don't worry that that template's folded over, that's normal. Okay, so now I'm just going to give a little roll this way just to even that shrinkage up. And then I'm going to roll it in my hands, and this part is really important. And keep making it back into the heart shape, even though this is folded in underneath. Just make it back into the shape you want it to be. You can stretch your felt, so stretch it back. Don't be scared, it's not going to fall apart at this stage. So now I'm going to roll it in my hands. So I'm going to squeeze some of that excess water out and just roll it round in my hand. So again, it's a very light motion. It's not it's the friction that we're wanting, not pressure. So you're not squeezing it, you're just very gently rolling it round and round. And then every little while, make it back into heart shape, into a heart shape. So this is looking great. And we've got our medium, this is a medium-sized heart. The shrinkage is really important with felt making. There's 2 parts to the process. One is felting, where the fibres just stick together, and then there's fulling, which is where the fibres shrink and harden and become a more solid piece of fabric. So let's have a little look. One thing I did forget to mention to you is that it's a really great idea on the bottom of your heart to just snip the point off, because what can happen, which has happened in this piece, and it's kind of good that it has because I can show you what to do, a little bit of the template has come through. So what I do in that case is I get my scissors and I poke it back in and I pull that to a nice point, and then I put a little bit of extra attention and a little bit of soap onto that point. And just what you need to do is felt that back together if that happens. And it's funny when we're doing videos and things don't turn out quite how you want, it's really great to have it, because then that will happen to you at home. So just make sure that you snip that point off, and even if you do snip the point off, sometimes it comes through. So what I'm doing is healing that hole back up with my fingers, and I'm rubbing with the palm of my hand on that. So see how that's a really nice point now? And the other thing that I do is I sometimes use a pair of pliers to bring that to a really nice point. And that just helps. You know, I quite like the hearts to have a pointy bottom. And there's a little bit of fluff on this end. I'm just going to snip that off. Okay, so more rubbing. And I think that's about done. Let's have a look at our size. So, yeah, tiny bit more. And then we're going to cut a hole and we're going to remove the template. So you want this to really shrink down nicely, because it is going to get a lot of love, and if you don't do the fulling part correctly, you will get pilling happening on your felt. So we need to take the template out. So with that sharp pair of scissors, and just snip in, and about a 2-finger width, and then you just start to pull. I kind of ease the template out because I like to keep reusing them if I can. Sometimes the template will tear a little bit, and in which case I just put a little bit of sticky tape to stick it back together. And pull that out. So you can see this one has torn a little bit before, and I've had sticky tape on it, so you just keep sticking that back together and you can reuse it. Okay, so there's a little bit of fluffiness on this edge, so I rub it with soap. So whenever you cut your felt, you always have to heal it. So I put my 2 fingers in here, and this part of my hand rubs on this cut edge. And that's healing that edge so that it won't stretch open anymore. So a bit of soap and rubbing. You don't need to do it for very long, just enough to take those fluffy fibres back in. And we make sure that it's exactly how we want it to be. So stretching is important. And then you can do a little bit of a roll without the template in your hands. Do keep the soap up to it. If you don't keep the soap up, it gets a bit fluffy. And don't do this for too long, or it can stick together. Okay. So, stretch. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Tiny bit more. Now what I'm going to do is rinse it. So at home, just rinse it in the sink. I'm just going to get all that soap out. And then either a towel or for me, I like to use these chamois again. I can wring them out. Just going to roll that up and take all the excess water out. So there we have our heart. It's looking great. The shape's nice. Make sure it's how you want it before you start to fill it. So for filling, I'm going to have my chopstick, and I'm just going to grab some wool. I use all sorts of, actually I'll use this wool down here. I use all sorts of wool that, you know, maybe that's a little bit matted, wool that, you know, maybe I don't use that colour anymore. So on the pattern it tells you how much wool, and I do fill them quite firmly. So just look on the pattern for how much wool you'll need. And I kind of separate it out. Open up the hole. Pop that in, chopstick. Make sure that you push it right down to that pointy part. You can see that that's closed up where it was a little bit open with the template poking through. And basically you just fill it. So I stuff it in quite hard, and I start from the end, work into the middle, and then I go into the two parts up the top. And the reason that I fill these when they're wet is so that we can shape it really nicely. And I find that makes a huge difference to how the hearts look if you fill them when they're wet or damp. So you don't want them super soggy, but just wet enough to be able to shape them. And so this isn't filled at all. This part here is starting to get nicely filled. It takes quite a lot of wool to fill them. And I really would like to encourage you not to fill them with synthetic fabric, with fibre fill, to try and fill them with wool, because what the wool does is it holds the warmth and it holds the heat from your body, and that's what people find so comforting about them. So just try and use up old wool. You know, it can be, as long as it's, I wouldn't suggest using you know, wool straight from the sheep, because it has a really sheepy smell. And so you want wool that's really nice and clean and doesn't have any sheepy odour, because people are going to be cuddling these. So we want them to not have any, look, I like the smell of sheep, but someone who's cuddling them might not. So it's funny. So there we go. So filling. So this is nice now. See how it's nice and chunky. And this one here needs a tiny little bit more. And so we're nearly done. It's very exciting. So they don't take long to do. So I'm filling that second side. So I'm going to straighten everything up. Do the final shaping when I've stitched it. So I've got my needle and thread with a matching colour, and I poke the wool in so it kind of isn't in the way and it's not going to get caught. Just pop your needle in and just going to snip that off. And just take a big stitch across to the other side. It's probably about 2 or 3 mil in from the edge. Don't do it too close to the edge or it'll kind of pull apart. And then I pull it really tight. So you can see that that's being pulled in. And it can get a little bit slippery with your needle, so just dry your hands off if that happens. And once it's all stitched up, we'll do the final shaping. So when I get to the end, then I do a little knot, or I do a few knots, probably 3. So 1 knot, pull it tight, 2 knots, and 3 knots. And then I usually stitch through the heart to the other side, pull that out, and so that ends sort of securely inside the heart somewhere. Okay, so now it's having a look. So because I pushed that fibre back in, I need to give it a little bit of a wiggle around, and we heal that place that we've cut. Now we haven't got soap on it, so I find this movement in here helps to flatten that out, and just rubbing that cut so that it heals up really nicely, and you can hardly even see the stitches if you do that. So now it's lots of love. So it's just rubbing it and shaping it, getting any lumps and bumps out. With most felt, it's the finishing that makes the difference between a good piece of felt and an average piece. So if you want your heart to be really lovely, you do have to spend a bit of time shaping it. So especially on that edge, give it a good rub, straighten it all up. And there we go. That's our little heart. So it's got two different sides, 1 and 2. And that's it. So go forth and make hearts. It's very, very exciting. We've had some wonderful felting groups who have joined in the project, and just really looking forward to hearing your stories. So on the Facebook group, people are sharing, you know, not too personal, but just sharing a little bit about where their hearts might have gone off to. And it's just nice to see their little heartfelt stories of where they've ended up. So enjoy.